All right, so you know why you're here, right? You're ready to start a business. You got that drive, but that million-dollar idea, it just feels out of reach.
Those million-dollar ideas don't always come from these big fancy brainstorming sessions.
Now, this isn't about chasing the latest fads. It's about using data.
Don't try to guess what'll be popular next year. There are 5 niches that are looking really promising for growth by 2025.
All right, so you know why you're here, right? You're ready to start a business. You got that drive, but that million-dollar idea, it just feels out of reach. And you're sitting there staring at this blank page like, what now? It's a little scary, isn't it?
It is, you want to jump, but you have absolutely no clue where to land. It's a roadblock pretty much every entrepreneur runs into. And that's why we're doing this deep dive today.
Exactly. Think of this like your fast track to those light bulb moments, those business ideas that could really take off. We've been digging deep into some seriously cool stuff, trend reports from CB Insights and all the advice from that podcast, How to Find a Million-Dollar Idea podcast, just to pull out the strategies and real-world stories that'll get your entrepreneurial gears turning.
What we're aiming for is actually pretty simple. We want to give you the tools and steps you could actually use. By the time we're done, you'll not only know where those golden opportunities are hiding, but more importantly, you'll know how to spot them yourself. And that's going to make that dream of starting a business way more real.
Okay, so let's get into it, shall we? And what better place to start than with a company we probably all use? Slack. I bet you just think of it as another work chat app, right? But its origin story is anything but ordinary.
It really is. You wouldn't believe this, but Slack wasn't always this billion-dollar communication giant we know. It actually started as a little tool inside a gaming company called Tiny Speck. They were trying to build this game Glitch, which, let's be honest, wasn't doing too hot.
Yeah, the game is having a rough time finding players. But this is where things get really interesting. So to work together on this game, the Tiny Speck team built their own private chat system. It was something they needed just to make their own lives easier and their communication smoother.
And the story goes that even when the game itself was tanking, the team realized they had something special with this chat system. It fixed a real problem for them, the headache of trying to collaborate through emails.
And they went for it. They took their internal tool, made it all shiny, and launched it as a separate product, Slack. And, the rest it blew up. In just 5 years, it was worth something like $5 billion. Talk about turning a little fix into a massive success.
So the big lesson here for you listening is this. Those million-dollar ideas don't always come from these big fancy brainstorming sessions. They often come from solving your own problems that you bump into every day.
So true. Think about it for a second. What are the things that really bug you? What feels way too complicated or slow? What problems keep popping up? Those are the places where really good business ideas come from.
It's a great point. So think about this right now. What are your pain points? Like in your work life, your hobbies, even just your daily routine, what do you wish was just easier, quicker, better? Keep those annoyances in mind as we look at more concrete ways to find ideas.
Okay, so let's talk about those more concrete ways, starting with riding the wave of trends. Now, this isn't about chasing the latest fads. It's about using data to find those big areas that are about to grow and where there are real opportunities.
Exactly. Don't try to guess what'll be popular next year. Tap into the research that shows where entire industries are hitting. And according to CB Insights and what they talked about on the How to Find a Million-Dollar Idea podcast, there are 5 niches that are looking really promising for growth by 2025.
Okay, let's hear them. What areas should our listener be paying attention to if they're on the hunt for that million-dollar idea?
The first one is AI in healthcare. Now, we're not talking about robots replacing doctors here, but AI can help create powerful tools to diagnose things better and faster. Think of AI scanning those medical images with crazy accuracy or going through tons of patient data to find patterns that humans might miss.
That makes total sense. Healthcare is always looking for ways to improve, and AI has the potential to really change things for the better. What's next on the list?
The next one is sustainable fashion tech. It's all about finding eco-friendly ways to make clothes and accessories. A great example is lab-grown leather, which means we don't need to rely on animals, and it cuts down the environmental impact of the fashion industry.
Now that's interesting. Fashion has a big impact on the planet, and with people becoming more aware that these sustainable options are really starting to catch on, combining fashion and sustainability sounds like a real opportunity.
It really does. The third one is vertical farming. Now this might sound a little sci-fi, but it basically means growing food indoors in these stacked layers. That's amazing is how efficient it can be. These systems can use up to 90% less water than regular farming. And you can put them right in the city so transportation costs go way down and city people get fresher food. Imagine fresh, local, sustainable food grown right in our cities.
That's incredible. We could totally change how we grow food and make it more sustainable at the same time. Okay, what are the last two trends CB Insights found?
The fourth one is remote work tools, but with a twist, it's about mental health for remote teams. We've all seen how remote work has become the norm these days, but it also comes with its own issues like feeling isolated and burned out. So tools that go beyond just schedule calls and actually help remote teams stay mentally healthy are getting really big.
It's true, we often forget about that part of remote work. Communication is important, but supporting people's mental health when they're working remotely is a huge area where new solutions are needed.
Exactly. And last but not least, the fifth trend is Web3 gaming, and specifically play-to-earn economies. These are games where you can earn cryptocurrency or NFTs, those unique digital things, just by playing. It's a whole new way of making money within the gaming world, and it's changing things fast.
Okay, so we've got AI in healthcare, sustainable fashion tech, vertical farming, remote work, mental health tools, and Web3 gaming. That's a lot of different areas. Now, for our listener who's trying to come up with that winning idea, how can they use this information to find a business opportunity within these trends?
Well, first things first, really think about whether any of these areas line up with the skills you already have, the things you're passionate about, or what you already know. Do you have a background in tech or healthcare that you could use for AI diagnostics? Are you all about sustainability and fashion? Does the idea of changing how we grow food with urban farming excite you? Thinking about your strengths can give you a real head start. So look for the overlap between what you're good at and these growing markets.
That's a great point. You're not starting from scratch if you can use what you already know in a field that's about to take off.
Exactly. And even if you've never worked in these areas before, if something really grabs your attention, it might be worth doing some research to see if there's a problem within that niche that you think you can solve better than anyone else. So let your passion guide you. It could be a huge motivator for learning and coming up with something new.
All right, let's move on to our second framework, which I think is super helpful for anyone who's struggling to find an idea, understanding the job to be done. Can you explain that in a way that really makes sense for our listener?
Of course, the basic idea behind the jobs to be done theory is that people don't just buy products or services, they hire them to do a specific job or fill a need. It's not about the fancy features, it's about the problem the customer's trying to solve. So think about the need, not the existing solution.
So it's less about what the product is and more about what it lets the person do.
Exactly. And the How to Find $1 Million Idea podcast gives some great examples of this. Take Airbnb, for instance. People aren't just buying a room for the night. They're hiring Airbnb to find them a place to stay that's affordable and in the right location, especially when hotels are too expensive or not the vibe they're going for. So really focus on what the customer wants to achieve.
That makes a lot of sense. It's all about the outcome they're looking for. What about Slack? We talked about it earlier. What job are people hiring Slack to do?
Well, people hire Slack because they need a better way to communicate as a team. Instead of getting lost in endless email chains, teams hire Slack to get organized work together more efficiently and share information right away. So the key takeaway is to identify what people don't like about the current solutions.
Okay, I'm seeing how this framework can really help our listeners come up with new business ideas. So how can they actually use the jobs to be done theory in their own search?
The most important thing is to start thinking about the jobs that you need done in your own life or the jobs you see other people struggling with. Where are things not working so well? What are those needs that aren't being met or the frustrations people have when they try to do something? So look for things that aren't efficient and those unmet needs in everyday activities.
Well, instead of thinking, I want to make a new social media platform, maybe they should be thinking, what are people trying to do with social media that's not working well and causing them frustration?
You got it. That shift in perspective can open up a whole new world of ideas. It makes you focus on what potential customers really need and want instead of just creating a slightly different version of what's already out there. Innovation comes from truly understanding that core need.
All right, let's move on to our third framework. Learning from the competition, but with a twist, finding the gaps. We're not just copying what everyone else is doing, are we?
Not at all. This is about really looking at successful products and businesses in areas you're actually interested in and asking yourself, what are they doing right? But even more importantly, what are they missing? Where could they improve? What needs aren't they meeting? Where could they expand? Your competitors can reveal new opportunities.
So it's about finding those parts of the market that aren't being served or those features that are missing.
You got it. The How to Find $1 Million Idea podcast gives a perfect example with Lyft. When Uber was already dominating the ride-sharing world, Lyft didn't try to be a carbon copy. They focused on doing a few things differently.
Like what? What did Lyft do to stand out?
They built a brand that felt friendlier, and they often had slightly better prices. They basically found a group of riders who cared about those things and they made sure to meet those needs. They're asking, what do some riders want that Uber isn't giving them? That's the key. Differentiate yourself.
So for our listener, let's say you're interested in online education. You shouldn't just look at Coursera or Udemy and think, I'll make another online course platform. Instead, ask yourself, what do students or teachers hate about these platforms? What learning needs aren't being met?
Exactly. Maybe they'll find that these platforms don't have good ways for people to connect, or the courses aren't engaging enough for some types of learners. Finding those gaps can lead to really innovative solutions that carve out a special and valuable place in the market. Those unmet needs, that's your target.
Okay, so we've talked about uncovering those hidden opportunities like Slack, riding the wave of trends with CB insights, understanding the job to be done, and learning from our competitors by finding their weaknesses. Now let's put it all together with a great example of how a simple idea turned into a huge success: Airbnb.
Airbnb's story is pretty amazing. Back in 2007, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia were just trying to make rent in San Francisco. As the How to Find $1 Million Idea podcast tells it, there was this big design conference happening, and all the hotels were booked solid.
They really did have to invent something out of necessity, didn't they?
Totally. They needed to make some money fast, so they decided to rent out air mattresses in their living room. They even threw in breakfast, hence the name Air Bed and Breakfast. And get this, they made $1,000 that very first week.
Wow, that's crazy. It all started with this super basic, almost random solution to a very specific problem.
And that's a huge lesson for you. They didn't start with this grand plan to build a global platform with millions of listings. It was a laser-focused solution for a very specific group, people coming to that design conference who couldn't find a hotel room. Start by solving a specific problem for a specific group of people.
So they were able to test their idea super quickly and in a very specific niche. That seems like a really important step for anyone who's starting out.
It totally was. By focusing on just those conference attendees, they could get feedback, fast tweak their offering based on what people actually wanted, and quickly prove that people actually needed this new type of lodging. Once they had that proof, scaling up became a lot easier. Rapid validation within a niche is crucial.
So it's not that everyone should start renting out air mattresses, but rather that starting small, solving a specific problem for a specific group, and testing that idea quickly are super important steps to building a successful business. Think small to go big.
Exactly. Don't feel like your first business idea has to be this groundbreaking, revolutionary thing. Often the most successful businesses start with simple solutions to real problems that a specific group of people are having right now. Simplicity can be incredibly powerful.
All right, so we've given you, our listener who's itching to start a business, these frameworks and these inspiring examples. Now let's talk about what you can actually do. What are some concrete steps you can take right now to turn inspiration into real business ideas?
The How to Find $1 Million Idea podcast has some really practical homework that I think is super valuable. The first thing is to spy on trends. Remember those promising niches we talked about from CB Insights? Now it's your turn to go to Google Trends and start searching for keywords related to those areas. Think things like AI healthcare solutions, lab-grown leather market, urban vertical farming, remote work mental wellness, or play-to-earn crypto games. See how many people are searching for these things? Find related topics that are getting popular and get a feel for what's gaining momentum. So explore the Google Trends in those relevant niches.
That's a great way to see what people are actually interested in and searching for right now. What's the next piece of advice?
The next step is to interview strangers. Now, this might sound a little weird, but it's a really effective way to find those unmet needs. Talk to at least 5 people. They don't need to be experts or potential customers, just regular people. And ask them this simple but powerful question. What's the most frustrating thing you deal with every day? You'll be amazed by the problems and needs you uncover just by listening to people talk about their everyday struggles. So do at least 5 interviews that are focused on finding problems.
That's brilliant. It makes you think outside your own little bubble and really understand what potential customers are going through. And the third action step to get started.
The last piece of homework is to brainstorm and then prioritize your ideas. Write down at least 10 different business ideas without judging yourself or overthinking it. Just let those ideas flow, no matter how strange they might sound. Once you've got your list, then you can start to evaluate each idea based on 2 things: how much of a pain it solves for people and how likely it is to make money. Are people willing to pay for a solution to this problem? So generate at least 10 ideas and evaluate their pain and profit potential.
So you're looking for that sweet spot where you're solving a real problem that people will actually pay to have solved.
Exactly. The point isn't to come up with that perfect $1 million idea right away. It's about taking action, exploring different possibilities, and starting that process of finding potential opportunities. As the podcast wisely points out, even if most of your initial ideas don't work out, that one that does could change everything. So embrace those early failures and keep iterating.
So, to recap for our listener who's ready to find that business idea, start by exploring trends on Google Trends, have those conversations with at least 5 people about their daily frustrations, and then brainstorm at least 10 business ideas and see which ones solve a big enough pain point and have real profit potential. Those are some solid first steps to get you moving in the right direction.
They really are. And remember, finding a business idea isn't about waiting for a flash of brilliance to hit you. It's about getting out there, doing your research, and really paying attention to the world around you.
I totally agree. So, as you're digging into those trends and talking to people, keep this in mind. Think about where those emerging trends we discussed, like AI, sustainability, remote work, and those new digital economies, overlap with the everyday problems that you or the people you talk to are facing. That's where the really innovative and valuable business ideas come from. What problem are you uniquely positioned to solve?